In our previous video, we have created real world application. In real world application, we have to work with database. In this application, we will use SQL Server database. Let's assume that we are using SQL Server database with ASP.NET Core application. The ASP.NET Core application cannot interact with the database directly. To create the connection in between the application and the database, we have to use Entity Framework Core. Now, let's see the role of this Entity Framework Core. Left side, we have new ASP.NET Core web application. Right side, we have the database. I want to store all this application data in this database. Then I want to fetch all the data from this database. Remember, this ASP.NET Core web application cannot interact with the database directly. To establish the connection between these, we will use Entity Framework Core. This Entity Framework Core has the ability to interact with the database and the application. This Entity Framework Core will work with any .NET application. It can also work with all the databases that are available in the market. Here, instead of this SQL Server, you can also work with MySQL. Now we understood the role of Entity Framework Core. Now let's understand what is Entity Framework Core. So Entity Framework Core is an open source framework from Microsoft that works as a bridge between the application and the database. The Entity Framework Core is compatible with any .NET application and any RDBMS. Entity Framework Core is the Microsoft official technology to interact with the RDBMS. Now, let's see how this Entity Framework Core works. Entity Framework Core is an ORM and works on the object-oriented perspective. Here, ORM means Object Relational Mapping. Object-oriented perspective means all the tables that you are using in a database similar to those tables, there will be classes in the Entity Framework Core, and all the columns that are available in those tables that will be created as properties of the classes. Let's assume we have two tables in the database. First table has 3 columns and the second table has 5 columns. Now we have to create the similar classes in our application to work with Entity Framework Core. So we have to create two classes because we have two tables. Both the tables has 3 and 5 columns. So we have to create 3 and 5 properties in both the classes. You can notice here we are creating the same thing in multiple times. We are creating the tables in the database as well as we are creating the same classes in the application. Let's see how can we handle this situation in Entity Framework Core. So Entity Framework Core working approach. In Entity Framework Core, we have two approach. First is code first. It means you can only create all the classes and properties manually in your application. From this code, you can create your database automatically. So you have to work only with the code. From that code, you can create your database completely. In the second approach, let's assume that already we have database. We can create all the classes automatically from database by using some commands that are provided by Entity Framework Core. So you can work with either one approach. If you want to work with code, then go with the code first approach. You can add all your tables as a classes in the application. Then you can create the database automatically by using this code first approach. If you have entered database already, then you can go with this second approach, that is database first. So there is no need to do anything with the code. You will have everything by using some commands that are provided by Entity Framework Code. Thanks for watching this video.